Welcome back to our channel, where we delve deep into the untold stories of the Bible, uncovering powerful truths that have shaped history and continue to resonate today. In this episode, we explore the fascinating and often overlooked story of Esau, the twin brother of Jacob. A man who sold his birthright for a simple meal, became the father of a mighty nation, and ultimately found grace in an unexpected place. Esau's legacy is a tale of choices, consequences, and the enduring power of forgiveness. But his story is more than just ancient history, it's a mirror reflecting the challenges and decisions we face in our own lives. What can we learn from Esau's triumphs and tragedies? How does his journey speak to us today? Stay with us as we unravel the complete story of Esau and his descendants, a narrative filled with intrigue, rivalry, and redemption. You won't want to miss a single moment of this deep dive into one of the Bible's most compelling figures. If you're as passionate about uncovering biblical truths as we are, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. What part of Esau's story resonates most with you? Share this video with friends and family to help spread the word. Together we can grow this community and continue to explore the wisdom of the Bible. Let's get started on this incredible journey through the life of Esau and the legacy he left behind. Our story begins in Genesis, chapter 25, verses 19 to 28, where we learn about the miraculous birth of Isaac and Rebekah's twin sons, Esau and Jacob. This event is significant because Isaac, the son of Abraham and Sarah, had married Rebekah when he was 40 years old. However, Rebekah was barren, and Isaac prayed earnestly for her to conceive. God answered his prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant. This was more than just a physical miracle. It was the continuation of God's covenant with Abraham, promising that his descendants would become a great nation. Genesis, chapter 17, verses 4 to 5. As Rebekah's pregnancy progressed, she experienced an unusual struggle within her womb. Concerned, she sought the Lord, asking why this was happening. The Lord responded with a prophetic message in Genesis, chapter 25, verses 23. "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger." This prophecy is crucial, as it foreshadows the conflict that would arise between the two brothers and their descendants. Esau and Jacob were not just individuals, they were the progenitors of two nations, Edom and Israel. When the time came for Rebekah to give birth, she delivered twin boys. Esau was born first, described in Genesis chapter 25, verse 25 as red and hairy, which would later become symbolic of his rugged nature. His name, Esau, means hairy, and he would come to be associated with the land of Edom, which means red. Genesis chapter 25, verse 30. Jacob followed immediately after, gripping Esau's heel. This detail is more than just a physical description. It symbolizes Jacob's desire to supplant his brother. The name Jacob means he grasps the heel, which can also imply he deceives or he supplants. This theme of supplanting is central to Jacob's life and their eventual rivalry. As the boys grew, their differences became more pronounced. Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, and was favored by his father Isaac, who enjoyed the wild game Esau provided. Genesis, chapter 25, verses 27 to 28. In contrast, Jacob was a quiet man who preferred to stay among the tents. He was favored by Rebekah, who perhaps remembered the prophecy that the older would serve the younger. This parental favoritism sowed the seeds of division within the family and set the stage for future conflicts. The contrasting personalities and parental preferences highlighted the divergent paths that Esau and Jacob would take. Esau, as a hunter, represents a man of the earth, driven by physical needs and desires. Jacob, staying among the tents, symbolizes a more contemplative life, connected to the promises and covenant of God. The birth of Esau and Jacob, therefore, is not just a family story, it is a narrative filled with prophetic significance. It introduces themes of rivalry, divine election, and the unfolding of God's plan through human history. The tension between Esau and Jacob would not only affect their lives, but would have lasting implications for their descendants and the nations they would father. Esau's story takes a pivotal turn in Genesis, chapter 25, verses 29 to 34, where we encounter one of the most critical moments in his life, the sale of his birthright. The birthright, in the context of ancient Near Eastern culture, was a highly significant inheritance. It granted the firstborn son a double portion of the family inheritance and positioned him as the spiritual leader of the family. The birthright was not just about material wealth. It was about carrying forward the covenantal promises that God had given to Abraham and Isaac. Esau, however, appears to have little regard for this sacred inheritance. In Genesis chapter 25, verses 29 to 34, we find him returning from the field, exhausted and famished. Jacob, who had been cooking a lentil stew, seizes the opportunity to bargain for Esau's birthright. Esau, driven by his immediate physical hunger, says, "Look, I am about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" Genesis chapter 25, verse 32. In a moment of impulsiveness, Esau swears to Jacob and sells his birthright for a simple meal. The Bible then concludes this episode with a poignant statement, "Thus Esau despised his birthright." Genesis chapter 25, verse 34. This act of selling his birthright reveals Esau's impulsive nature and his lack of appreciation for spiritual matters. The birthright was a symbol of God's covenantal blessings, including the promise that through Abraham's lineage, all nations of the earth would be blessed. Genesis chapter 12, verses 2 to 3. By despising his birthright, Esau showed a disregard for the spiritual responsibilities and privileges that came with being the firstborn. Later in Genesis chapter 27, the story intensifies when it comes time for Isaac to bestow his blessing. Isaac, now old and nearly blind, prepares to bless Esau, his firstborn, as was the custom. However, Rebekah, remembering the prophecy that the older would serve the younger, devises a plan for Jacob to receive the blessing instead. She instructs Jacob to disguise himself as Esau, using Esau's clothes and covering his hands and neck with goat skins to mimic Esau's hairy skin. Genesis chapter 27, verses 15 to 17. Jacob approaches Isaac with the prepared meal, pretending to be Esau. Although Isaac is initially suspicious, he is ultimately convinced by Jacob's disguise and the food, which he believes Esau has hunted and prepared. Isaac then blesses Jacob, giving him the blessing intended for the firstborn. "May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." Genesis chapter 27, verses 28 to 29. This blessing includes not only material prosperity but also authority over nations and his brothers, affirming the prophecy given to Rebekah. When Esau returns from the hunt and realizes what has happened, he is heartbroken and pleads with his father, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Genesis chapter 27, verse 36. Isaac, trembling, confirms that he has indeed blessed Jacob, and that the blessing will stand. He does, however, bless Esau with a different, more somber blessing. "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Genesis chapter 27, verses 39 to 40. This blessing prophesies a life of struggle for Esau and his descendants, the Edomites. It foretells that Esau's people will live by the sword, often in conflict, and that they will serve Jacob's descendants, the Israelites. But with the promise of eventual freedom. This part of Esau's story highlights the deep consequences of both his impulsiveness and Jacob's deception. Esau's loss of the birthright and blessing sets the stage for the future enmity between their descendants, fulfilling the words spoken to Rebekah before the twins were born. The story also underscores the theme of divine election, where God's purposes prevail despite human actions. As Paul later reflects in Romans chapter 9, verse 13, "As it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated." This scripture emphasizes that God's plans and purposes are sovereign. even when they involve the complicated dynamics of human relationships. The story of Esau's birthright and blessing is a powerful reminder of the importance of spiritual values and the far-reaching impact of our choices. It challenges us to consider what we truly value and how our decisions align with God's purposes for our lives. Now, let's explore further about Esau's marriage and his descendants. Esau's choice of wives is a crucial aspect of his life story, illustrating his continued divergence from the covenantal path established by his grandfather Abraham. In Genesis chapter 26, verses 34 to 35, we first learn of Esau's marriages. When Esau was 40 years old, he took Judith the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. The Hittites were part of the Canaanite nations, which were known for their idolatry and practices that were abhorrent to the God of Israel. Esau's marriage to these Canaanite women grieved his parents deeply, not only because of the cultural differences, but because it showed Esau's disregard for the covenantal lineage. Abraham had gone to great lengths to ensure that Isaac did not marry a Canaanite woman. Genesis chapter 24, verses 3 to 4, and yet Esau, Isaac's own son, ignored this precedent. Esau's marriages to these Canaanite women are symbolic of his further departure from the spiritual legacy of Abraham. This choice reflects Esau's impulsive and earthly-focused nature, contrasting sharply with the spiritual priorities that Jacob, his brother, would embody. It underscores the fact that Esau's actions were not aligned with the covenantal promises that God had made to Abraham, promises that were meant to be preserved through careful and faithful living. Realizing the grief he caused his parents, Esau attempted to remedy the situation by marrying Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son by Hagar, in Genesis chapter 28, verses 6 to 9. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him he directed him, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and gone to Paddan Aram. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, besides the wives he had, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth. This marriage to a daughter of Ishmael, although better aligned with his family's lineage, still represented a departure from the ideal. Ishmael himself, while a son of Abraham, was not the child of promise. Genesis chapter 21, verse 12. Esau's union with Mahalath might have been an attempt to regain favor with his parents, but it also highlighted his continual struggle to align with the spiritual covenant God had established through Isaac and Jacob. Despite these efforts, Esau's line continued to move away from the covenantal promises. His descendants, known as the Edomites, became a powerful nation. Genesis chapter 36 provides a detailed genealogy of Esau, emphasizing his role as the father of the Edomites. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan: Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite; Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite; and Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, the sister of Nebaioth. Genesis chapter 36, verses 2 to 3. The chapter goes on to list the chiefs of Edom and the various descendants of Esau who settled in the hill country of Seir. This region south of the land of Israel became the homeland of the Edomites. Genesis chapter 36, verse 8, succinctly states, "So Esau settled in the hill country of Seir." Esau is Edom. The name Edom, which means red, is linked to Esau's red appearance at birth and his desire for the red stew for which he sold his birthright. Genesis chapter 25, verse 30. The Edomites would go on to have a tumultuous relationship with the Israelites, characterized by both conflict and eventual subjugation. The prophet Obadiah speaks extensively about the judgment against Edom, reflecting the long-standing enmity between the two nations. Obadiah chapter 1, verses 3 to 4 captures the pride and eventual downfall of Edom. "The pride of your heart has deceived you, you who live in the clefts of the rocks, in your lofty dwelling, who say in your heart, 'Who will bring me down to the ground?' Though you soar aloft like the eagle, Though your nest is set among the stars, from there I will bring you down, declares the Lord. This prophecy against Edom symbolizes the consequences of living apart from God's covenant. Despite Esau's strength and the power of his descendants, their separation from the covenantal blessings meant that their story would be one of conflict, struggle, and eventual judgment. Esau's marriages and the rise of his descendants, the Edomites, serve as a powerful narrative of how choices, especially those concerning spiritual matters, can have far-reaching consequences. Esau's decision to marry Canaanite women, and his attempt to correct his mistake by marrying a daughter of Ishmael, reflect a life lived outside the fullness of God's covenantal promises. The legacy of Esau, while marked by strength and earthly power, is ultimately a cautionary tale of what happens when one turns away from the spiritual inheritance intended by God. The relationship between the Israelites and the Edomites is one of the most complex and hostile dynamics found in the Old Testament. The enmity that began with Esau and Jacob extended to their descendants, manifesting in various conflicts, betrayals, and prophecies of judgment. One of the earliest and most telling encounters between Israel and Edom occurs in Numbers, chapter 20, verses 14 to 21. During their journey to the Promised Land, the Israelites, led by Moses, requested passage through the land of Edom. Despite their peaceful intentions, the Edomites refused, demonstrating their deep-seated hostility. But Edom said to him, "You shall not pass through, lest I come out with the sword against you." Numbers, chapter 20, verse 18. This refusal forced the Israelites to take a longer and more arduous route, exacerbating the tensions between the two nations. The Edomites' refusal is not merely an act of political defiance, but a continuation of the ancient rivalry between Esau and Jacob. It also symbolizes Edom's resistance to God's plan for Israel, a theme that would recur throughout the Bible. The hostility between Edom and Israel continued throughout the history of the Israelite monarchy. In 1 Samuel chapter 14 verse 47, we read that King Saul fought against the Edomites along with other neighboring nations. In his efforts to secure Israel's borders, when Saul had taken the kingship over Israel, he fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, against the Ammonites, against Edom, against the kings of Zobah, and against the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he routed them. This verse highlights that the Edomites were considered enemies of Israel from the very beginning of the monarchy. Saul's campaigns against them were part of a broader effort to establish Israel as a dominant power in the region. Later, during the reign of King David, the enmity reached a climax. David not only defeated the Edomites but also placed garrisons in Edom, effectively subjugating the nation and incorporating it into his empire. This is recorded in 2 Samuel chapter 8 verses 13 to 14, and David made a name for himself when he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. Then he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. The subjugation of Edom under David's rule was a significant moment in the history of both nations. It demonstrated Israel's dominance and fulfilled part of the prophecy given to Rebekah that the older Esau would serve the younger Jacob. However, this subjugation did not lead to lasting peace. The Edomites remained resentful and rebellious, leading to further conflicts in later years. One of the most severe instances of Edomite treachery occurred during the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 586 BC. According to the book of Obadiah, the Edomites not only rejoiced over Israel's downfall, but actively participated in the destruction and plundering of Jerusalem. On the day that you stood aloof, on the day that strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were like one of them. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 11. Obadiah's prophecy is particularly harsh toward Edom, condemning them for their betrayal of their brother Israel. The prophet pronounces judgment on Edom, declaring that they will be utterly destroyed for their actions, for the day of the Lord is near upon all the nations. As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your deeds shall return on your own head. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 15. This prophecy underscores the moral and spiritual consequences of Edom's hostility towards Israel. The Edomites, despite their close kinship with Israel, are portrayed as enemies of God's people, and therefore subject to divine judgment. The enmity between Israel and Edom persisted even after the exile, with the Edomites continuing to resist Israel's attempts to rebuild and restore their nation. This ongoing conflict is a tragic reminder of the deep and unresolved tensions that began with Esau and Jacob. Throughout the Old Testament, the Edomites are consistently depicted as antagonists to Israel, often embodying the opposition to God's covenantal purposes. Their actions, from refusing passage to actively participating in Israel's downfall, reveal a nation that, like their ancestor Esau, chose to live outside the covenant blessings. The Edomites in the Bible serve as a powerful example of how ancestral conflicts can shape the destiny of nations. Their relationship with Israel, marked by hostility and betrayal, ultimately led to their downfall as prophesied by Obadiah and other prophets. The story of Edom is a sobering reminder of the consequences of opposing God's will and the enduring impact of the choices made by Esau and Jacob so many generations before. In conclusion, the story of Esau and his descendants is rich with lessons about the consequences of our choices, the importance of spiritual values, and the power of forgiveness. Esau's legacy is not just one of rivalry and conflict, but also of reconciliation and grace. As we reflect on his story, let's consider how we can apply these lessons in our own lives, choosing the path of faith, valuing our spiritual inheritance, and embracing reconciliation. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of Esau and the impact of his descendants. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth Bible studies and insights. God bless, and see you in the next video.